Welcome to the Dietitians Unplugged podcast with Aaron Flores and Glenys Oyston. Join us as we explore the idea of health and wellness from a new perspective. Each episode, we will discuss topics that will help you improve your health, body image, and fitness without obsessing on the scale or counting calories. We believe in health at every size, intuitive eating, and body positivity, and we want to help you build the confidence to ditch the scale, embrace your health, and unplug from the world of diets and body shame. Welcome back to another episode of Dietitians Unplugged. This is episode 23. 23 episodes.
Wow.
I think we're going to get surprised at every new episode. I can't believe we're doing 24.
Yeah, and then Merritt Boxler puts out an episode. It's like episode number 562. I'm like, damn, Merritt.
No kidding. I check out some of these other podcasts, and they're like at 895. I was like, fuck me. Dude, we're at 24 and I feel like so proud. Oh.
Well, it's, you know what? We got full-time jobs. I mean, I think everybody else does too. That was a lame excuse.
Yeah, or it's their full-time job.
Yeah. I shouldn't say that was not a good excuse.
Yeah, we're slackers.
Gen X, all the way.
So before we totally trash our generation,
right.
We wanted to give everyone an update on one of the things that we were really excited to participate in. Glenys is laughing already. We were interviewed by Vice UK, and they found us through our podcast, and they asked for us to comment on our definition of wellness. So we were all super excited. I even bought like a new shirt, new vest, right?
It was nice. It was a really nice shirt.
Got to look good on TV.
Yeah.
And we met at the Hollywood Farmers Market. We probably spent like 3 hours there, I would say.
At least, yeah.
Yeah.
It was hot as hell by the end.
We actually had to take a shot of wheatgrass.
Oh, God. It was terrible.
Those bastards making me drink wheatgrass.
Wheatgrass.
And, got asked some questions, did a lot of walk and talks. Shout out to the West Wing.
Right. We did some naughties. We learned what naughties are. Yeah.
They're not drinks.
No.
No.
And they're not like some sexual act either.
Oh, I didn't even go there.
Sorry. Oopsie.
And then we were super jazzed, at least to do it. Definitely had some feelings after. And then, sadly, we got an email about a month ago saying, oh, darn, we're not going to use you in the episode.
You're on the cutting room floor, suckers.
Yeah, so we are somewhere in England, scooped up in the trash, and will never be in the episode. Now, the episode, at least as we're recording this episode, it has not gone live yet. So we haven't seen what they actually put together. But we know that they were spending a few days in LA to interview some different people and go to a couple different restaurants. So we were interviewed by a chef, Lee Tiernan, and who was really nice. And I think, I enjoyed talking with.
He mostly talked to you.
So that's a big part of what we're going to talk about. We also know a couple other people that they were interviewing. So we can go into that. But sadly, we're not going to be in the episode. So we can't even tell you what we can give you a synopsis of what we said, but you'll never see it. Right.
And I'd love to talk about what, for me personally, the questions they asked us, and then how actually I wanted to answer and how I kind of did answer, the difference between those two things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So really, we didn't get a lot of information before, but basically they wanted to know, right, our definition or how we see wellness and when it can go wrong, right? When an emphasis on wellness can go wrong. So we thought going to a farmer's market could be really interesting because that is sort of the epicenter of people getting more in touch with their food, but also can lead to a lot of orthorexic thinking and behaviors.
Right.
Right?
Yeah, I feel like the farmer's market is the representation of all that can go right and all that can go wrong with nutrition, thinking about nutrition and health. And let me just say that before we went into this, I was really a lot less enthusiastic than you were.
Yeah.
Simply because video as a medium is just not my thing. Like, I will do anything to avoid being videotaped. And this has been true since 10th grade when they made us videotape our dance performance in a dance class. And I was like, holy hell, is that what I look like? And so ever since then, I've successfully avoided being on video. And this came along and I was like, well, in the spirit of challenging myself to do things that get me out of my comfort zone, let's do it. And it was more exciting to me that you were going to be there. I was like, oh, okay, good. You know, yeah.
And you're right. I was probably more excited to do it. But I think after, and as we've like talked about it more and more, having some perspective on it, I definitely can see a lot of the issues that you had with it. So why don't you sort of start and give us some insight into how you experienced the day?
Okay. So, well, the first thing they did is they had emailed us. And I remember she'd emailed me first because I think somehow my blog had been linked from a Vice article once. And then they found our podcast, and then they emailed us both simultaneously. And initially I had said, I'm not really the person to talk about wellness trends in LA. Like, that's just not what I talk about. So, and then I was very, I was like, well, I just need to make sure that this is not going to be anti-fat and fat phobic and all of that. And she assured me it would not be. And so then when you were signed on, I was, oh, that's going to be fun. So so the first thing they kind of did was they said, of course, video is like such a weird experience because they're really directing you for the purpose of entertainment. And I feel like the information might be secondary to some degree. So first they're like, well, what's your definition of wellness? And I think like, well, shit, that's a lot to unpack right there, right? Like, and what they want is you to say it in a neat and tidy soundbite.
Yeah, 30 seconds.
30 seconds. And they also want you to repeat the question back. Like, wellness is, so that, it looks like nobody has asked you the question, I guess. I don't really know. But anyway, but the first thing, so I get there and you're there and, we get the mic taped on us and everything. It's really cool. And we're getting ready to record. And the first thing they did was they had the little clapboard and they write like just your name on it. And I'm like, what the fuck? Like, I don't know. Just suddenly my left out button has been pushed. And that's like a bad button for me. I'm like, why is just Erin's name being written on the clipboard? Oh my God. Well, like, am I even in this? Do they even want me here? And then, that just set off a whole chain reaction for me. Like, oh my God, I'm not important. What am I doing here? They expected a thin dietitian. They just think this is very bad optics. And I just was like going through the litany of crazy in my head. And maybe not crazy. Like, maybe that is kind of what they thought too. I don't know why I'm dismissing it so easily like that. But yeah, so that put me off my game. And then they're kind of saying like, what? So they start with you. What is wellness? And then you give a great answer. And then they start with me. Then they go to me next. I'm like, Gah. And, I say something, but it's really not. It's not like we're sitting here in a room and just we can say whatever the fuck we want. Right. Like, I'm like, I have to say this and I have to look good while I'm saying it and I have to look professional. And I just kind of, I don't know. I didn't think my answer was that great. I did try to sort of incorporate like health is so much more than just like what you eat. And it's about like your, things that affected or your socioeconomic status and in America, like your race and probably in the world and how you're treated by society based on your weight and your health isn't just about your weight. And I tried to, even now I'm not saying it in a great way, but basically I tried to get all of those things in there. And I don't know. I wasn't like, oh, I just sounded great. I just thought, I sound like shit. Yeah. So then I went down the rabbit hole of like, they're going to cut me out because what I started to notice is actually because you're so much better on camera, I think. I really do think they started to ask you just more questions. And they were just like, oh God, she's here. My God. How do we get rid of this person?
Yeah.
And I don't know how much of that is paranoia and how much of that is reality.
No, I definitely sort of, and so I definitely picked up on what you were saying now, and that they looked at me a lot, or especially the producers. Right.
Who were all mostly men. And then there were like a few women standing around. And like, as far as I could tell, their job was carrying bottles, even though they had kind of organized it and whatever. They just really weren't giving any input in. So I was like, okay, it was weird because I work in a female dominated field and I love that. And I realize how much I really don't miss being in a male dominated field. Like I worked in software before and banking and, the entertainment industry is a male-dominated field. So they're kind of like, they're just kind of looking at you mostly.
Yeah. So, and again, I didn't pick up on it until much later, especially once we realized we're not going to be in it,
Yeah.
and you were, you sent me a couple of emails just talking about, we had a couple email exchanges about it.
Right.
And so from my perspective, this is where, as a learning experience, right, is like that what I could do differently, right? Because I think because I feel like there was this one, a couple moments, right, where as the man, right, as a man and being like treated like a man versus what you were feeling like being a woman, is I probably could have done a few things pretty differently to make it more clear that we are equals in this conversation. And
I guess, I mean, I think the step one, though, is noticing, and that's hard to do.
Right.
Right.
So, but again, I think this is like the learning experience. And this is, again, Glenys and I, and anyone who's, especially clinicians who are involved in the health at every size community and the ASDA community, know that these conversations are sometimes really hard, and also sometimes hard for different perspectives, right? And it's sort of like coming together. So this is why I'm happy we can talk about it here, right? Because we can sort of see, okay, yeah, that was some bullshit, right? It was, and to understand why, but also, if I were to be an ally in that moment, right? How could I have done, like, hey, why is my name just on that clapboard, right? Or,
because we're not getting paid,
right?
So really, what's to lose,
right?
I mean, they might have said like, "Fuck you, don't be in this clip," and then that would have sucked. But we're not losing revenue,
right?
Yeah,
and also just to sort of say, like, hey, I notice you're asking me all the questions. Glenys has some great points that we could add into this also. I don't know. I mean, I think that there's none of it's perfect.
Right.
I think it was a learning experience. And I also want to give a thank you to Rebecca Scritchfield, because we recorded her podcast like on a Saturday, and we were going to this interview on a Sunday, and she spent some time with us after we were recording, and she has a lot of media savvy, a lot of media expertise. And she took some very generous time with us to just sort of walk through how to sort of give sound bites. Yeah.
And I definitely tried to use some of that advice. But the other part is I do struggle with like a little bit of introversion in a visual format. Like I don't love getting up and talking in front of large groups of people.
Yeah.
I am a little bit shy in some situations. And if you meet me and know me for any amount of time, you're like, you're shy? I don't think so. I'm not buying it. But I came up against my own introversion.
Right.
Finally.
Right.
So it's like I just was not in a place to advocate for myself at that moment. And I also thought, like, is it important to advocate for myself? Is it important to throw? I don't know. Is it worth it?
Yeah, I don't know.
Is it? Yeah, that's
So the to me, the unfortunate part is we also knew who they were interviewing later that day.
Yeah.
And it's this creator of like some juice drink in Venice, and she's got, from my perspective, without knowing this person, just reading articles about her, very like orthorexic sort of mindset.
Yes.
And I think we are the perfect opposite experience to that. And so that's what sort of makes me sad, is that they don't have that perspective now in their sort of 8-minute video once it comes out, and assuming that they include this one. Again, we haven't seen the final cut. We haven't seen anything yet.
Right. And what I thought was that really they didn't get at the heart of who we were and what we did. Right. Like, I feel like we could have talked so much more about health at every size and intuitive eating and all of that, but they kind of weren't interested in hearing that. So there wasn't an opportunity to talk about it too much. I mean, you definitely did. You definitely covered that. Like, but it's such a longer conversation, which is why we have a podcast.
Yeah. And maybe like, right. Maybe it's more than just a 30-second answer.
Right.
So unfortunately you won't be seeing us on Vice UK. Or maybe positively, you won't be seeing us on Vice UK if they edit it poorly. But it was a learning experience, and
Yeah. And so going back to the question they asked, like,
Yeah.
if you were to be asked now, what is wellness? What would you say?
I wish I knew how brilliant I was when they answered. Because
It was good. Yeah.
I think my definition of wellness is that it's individual and that it's not a one size fits all answer. And it's not something that can be put in a box, or I can give a simple answer to. But basically, to me, what I see as wellness is someone who has the ability to have positive behaviors for both mind, body, and spirit, but also with the perspective to step back and see where the need for work is, but also where the positive things are, right? So it's not like, I think it's openness, right? I think a lot of wellness tends to be very black or white. It must be this way, almost like with a religious fervor. And to me, wellness is very gray. It's very middle ground, and it's peaceful. It's calm, and it's not stressful. It's not argumentative with ourselves. It's not punishment. It should be peaceful.
Yeah, and I don't think it's just the absence of illness, right? Like,
right.
So that answer was brilliant. It was kind of similar to I think what you said during the interview, but you said so much more now. Isn't it great that we are in control here? We can say whatever we want.
I'm going to cut out some of that, by the way. Just kidding. It's a one size fits all thing.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and then can we talk about the wheatgrass?
Yeah. So as we're walking and we're doing, walking up and down this aisle, they're like, "Oh, can we do a shot of wheatgrass?" And I was like, "Sure." I've never had wheatgrass before in my life.
Neither have I.
Like,
I only know about the episode of Sex and the City where somebody gets her boyfriend to drink wheatgrass for a specific reason, and it's always stuck in my head. That's what wheatgrass is for. So I was curious to taste it, but the reality is, like, we're the last people who would,
oh my God,
drink that shit just to be healthy.
Yeah. And like, I think part of why they wanted us to do it is like to poo-poo it a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah.
But the poor guy who's selling it right there, like, we're not going to like poo-poo it right in front of this guy who's really nice.
Right. Yeah. The direction kind of was, let's make fun of him after. And even the host was like, he's a nice guy. Yeah. He's a nice guy. Like, why are we going to do that to him,
But the unfortunate thing is they made it do it 3 times.
Oh,
right. Not the first cut didn't work. So we had to do it 3 times. And just for those people out there wondering, it doesn't get better the second time or the third time.
Nope, it gets worse.
Yeah, wheatgrass is not really good.
No, and the funny thing is the host was like, "Oh no, this is good. It's actually pretty good." I'm like,
he had tried it before.
Pretty good for something that tastes like ass.
Yeah,
so.
He was like, "Oh, it's not as, this one isn't as bitter as before."
It's kind of sweet. I'm like, nope, tastes like somebody blended up grass.
And so this also goes back to like my childhood, probably like trauma. Like my brother, who's 6 years older, used to pin me down on our lawn, like, and put his knees on my arms, and I'd be yelling and screaming, and he would shove grass in my mouth, like pour grass in my mouth as I was as kids roughhouse. Right. So like, it totally, like, dude, I had to eat grass again.
It was, yeah, except this time it was liquefied and you had to ingest it all the way.
And voluntary.
Yeah.
Yeah, something wrong with that.
And you can buy the wheatgrass, and they're like, they have the little sign of what it does, all this stuff, and it's like, come on, that's bullshit. Maybe it's good. Maybe there's some vitamins, but in reality, we're not really designed to ingest grass. So
right, I'm not chewing cud.
We don't have 3 stomachs.
No.
Or 4 stomachs, right?
No, that was a mess.
Yeah.
So damn you, Vice UK, for making us drink wheatgrass.
Right. Thanks a lot. But maybe, on the other hand, maybe we'll live forever.
Yeah, but we did have a nice lunch in the farmer's market after.
Yes, we did. We paid for it.
We paid for it.
I was thinking maybe they would just give us lunch. Nothing.
Yeah.
Water bottles. That's it.
Yeah.
For which I was grateful.
I was parched.
Yeah. We were so hungry after, too.
And listen, being a West Wing fan, the fact that I got to do a walk and talk, I was like so friggin' happy.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, we're doing a walk and talk.
Right. And I really like the sound guy, and I can't remember his name, but he was like super nice.
He was very nice, and he heard all of our stupidity in between because he's, yeah.
Yeah. And that I started thinking, like, holy crap, what if
That audio's out there.
Yeah, that audio's out there, and me saying like stupid things because I'm just off my rocker at this point.
I'm sure they've heard worse, right? We could probably put clips in of, Casey Kasem, who lost it in the studio, and Christian Bale, who lost it while recording, doing a movie. Like,
and then
there are all these great sound outtakes of people losing it.
And then the Jinx, Robert Durst, who like basically confessed to murdering on his hot mic. So yeah, I guess like, compared to that, oh well. Yeah, me saying some stupid things.
He's heard some shit.
Yeah, because when I ramble, I say really stupid things. So
don't we all?
I don't know.
That's usually the second half of our podcast. That's where the shit comes in.
Blah blah blah. Yeah. Yeah.
No, every kernel that we say is brilliant. Come on.
God, imagine walking around feeling like that.
Yeah.
So then the funny thing is, the chef was very nice, but he did mostly talk to you, and I was like, felt like, oh my God, this is what it's like to be a middle-aged woman, because I realize now that, age probably 20 to 40, most men give you the time of day just because you're youngish and cute.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden I've aged out of that that demographic, and like men will not have a serious conversation with me, and it's so frustrating, aside from you and my partner. But like, it's so frustrating, and it feels very dismissive. But we can talk. That's a whole other conversation.
That's a whole other podcast. Yeah. Which is coming up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, so I mean, it would have been nice to chat a little bit more, but then again, I was also probably kind of a little nervous and not really making witty repartee. And like, it's a whole English thing. Like, my humor just was not translating at all. So I think I don't speak English. No, I don't speak British. Sorry. Yeah. Anyway.
Well, chalk it up to a learning experience.
Yeah.
And
to me, you were like super disappointed that we weren't going to be in, and I was like, yes, I don't have to face seeing myself in video, which probably isn't the healthiest response, but whatever, it's what I'm dealing with right now. So
again, because of just all of the things that we experience in life, the same experience was, there are two very different responses to the exact same experience.
Right, exactly. And just because of what I am and, what you are in life and how people, So, but I'm still glad we did it. Like, I'm not regretful of the experience. And it was like, it taught me a lot, which is like, if you are going to expect to be heard, you're going to have to be really loud. And then the other thing that it taught me was that I really like to be in situations where I've got some control. So I love our podcast because, of course, we have total control over it.
Yeah.
But something where somebody else is running the show, that's so hard for me.
Okay, so two questions then is, do you feel the same thing when you're on another? We've each been interviewed by different people for their podcast. Do you feel that when you're interviewed?
I feel a lot more nervous.
Okay.
When I'm on, and it's weird to only be asked questions of myself, I find. But because we know usually to some degree the people who are asking those questions, and we just know they're gonna let us ramble on.
Yeah.
That's a lot more comfortable. Like, we're there to be asked.
Sure.
I felt like in the video that they were shooting, we were props. Yeah. Versus like in any other person's podcast, I feel like they're actually asking us what we think. And
interesting.
And so I feel a lot more free to just be me and to be strong in my opinions.
So the second question is, if someone wanted to interview us for a video, again, would you do it?
Yes. I didn't even hesitate. I'm so glad I did
that.
that. Yeah,
me too.
Yeah. I totally would do it. I think I would have more questions going in.
Okay.
Like, what the fuck are you going to ask us? Number one.
You wouldn't say fuck though, would you?
No, I guess I wouldn't.
You send me the email and then I'll filter out the curse words.
All the curse words. Yeah. It's like some kind of speech impediment where I can't stop swearing. And I swear so much more in my regular not podcast life.
Yeah,
than I do
know,
on
me
the
too.
podcast, so be thankful I'm editing myself.
My poor kids. Hear me curse so much.
Yeah, I would do it again because I learned a lot from the first situation. And again, I don't want to let fear of being seen on video hold me back from getting this message across. So I would do it again, and I would just ask more questions. Like, what are you going to ask us? And how much time are we going to have? And is this about what? And then I think I would want it to be much more about, like, focused on, what we do. specifically, health at every size, intuitive eating,
Sure.
helping people to not diet, getting people over eating disorders, all of that, I wanted to be much more focused on that. But that, you know what, that's a dream, right? Like if the opportunity comes along,
We'll take it.
yeah.
Okay. Because I'd do it again too.
Yeah.
So send those requests.
We are now open for video.
Exactly.
Videotaping.
By the way, as we were talking, I just tasted the wheatgrass again, and I shivered.
In the back of your throat.
Yeah, that's exactly where I tasted it.
Oh,
so
it's so
a little
nasty.
PTSD from the wheatgrass.
Yeah, it's awful. So in the vein of what is wellness, we
Yeah.
got a question from somebody.
So this is a really great question we got in our email. And I'll just give you the synopsis at the beginning and then I'll read the end. It comes from a listener who has her own eating disorder history and is working on her own recovery and tried a lot of different approaches and done some research on health at every size and intuitive eating. She is a member of OA and sponsors a lot of folks from the on the spiritual and emotional side, not on the food and physical side. And she's, done some research on health at every size on Hays and wrote to us with a question. And it's this, and I'm just going to read it word for word. How do you all define health for your clients? Hays is amorphous, and this definition seems to be necessary to keep it from becoming a just give up philosophy. For example, if someone comes to you who is only 50 years old, but has severe mobility issues, falls frequently, and is clinically obese, their word, how could you counsel that individual based on Hays? And she would love to hear all of our opinions in this area since she sees us as experts in this area. So thank you for seeing us as experts.
Yes, thank you. And just for those who don't know, we can say what OA is. It's Overeaters Anonymous.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of different flavors of OA around. Some more supportive, some more restrictive. That's probably a whole nother episode talking about OA. But I think it's a great question and something that comes up a lot for me as people learn about Hays, and especially this sort of notion of how do you counsel someone so it isn't just a give up philosophy, which it is not. I think it's anything but give up philosophy. So I don't know. What do you say, Glenys? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, my first thoughts are that health at every size is not really as amorphous as she's saying. Like there actually are very specific tenets of this philosophy, right? Like supporting movement that feels good and sort of eating according to internal cues. And I mean, I don't have it in front of me right now, but it is like 5 different points that sort of explain what health at every size is. And it's pretty specific, actually.
Absolutely. And I think the things that I really find that is about health at every size is a couple things, right? This enjoyable movement, moving your body in a way that's not punishment. It's not punitive. It's not compulsory, right? It's that it could be anything, whether it's dancing, whether it's, hula hooping, whether it's swimming, whether it's running or doing a triathlon. It could be anything. It's just doing it for the joy of doing it. I think the other part of health at every size, then this is where people sort of butt up against it on some level, is they just hear the health and any size, right? But not go anything deeper. And so one of the things that to me is very important is understanding that there is diversity in our size and that we are all going to be different shapes and sizes, and that we are, and especially once we look at, our dieting history and our yo-yo dieting, weight cycling, that can affect our set points and where our body will naturally sort of fall in those areas. So, the last thing is that this isn't like explicitly written, right? But that health is not a moral imperative either within health at every size. I think, yes, I mean, there can be emotional benefits, right? Psychological benefits, but it's not an imperative, and that each person's version of what health looks like, this is the amorphous part that she might be referring to, is that each person's idea of health might look a little bit differently.
Right, absolutely. And the other thing that it doesn't explicitly cover, but we all kind of understand, is that health isn't totally within our control. Necessarily.
Oh,
we can
that's
do
awesome.
Yeah, we can do a lot to affect our health, but in reality, there is just so much other stuff that can happen to your body that is, genetic or environmental or whatever, that you're not going to necessarily have control over. And just as a part of the aging process and the dying process, like, we are going to experience different things which we might perceive as unhealthiness, but when we say that health is completely within our control, that's when it becomes this morality issue.
Yeah. And I think the other thing is that we take the leap from health is in our control to weight is in our control. So this is something I've heard you say many times, and it's brilliant. And I love that you always sort of say, okay, let's say for this person that they need to lose weight, right? We're still giving them a prescription that is not long-term effective, right? We're asking them to do something that really we've proven is not sustainable over time. So why is that the prescription? So for this client, right, if someone were coming into my office and they were, in a larger body, 50, having trouble walking, and who knows why that is, right?
Right.
Would I automatically tell them, okay, we need to get you to lose weight? No. The first thing I would start to learn is, or want to know is, a little bit more about that mobility issue, right? What's its root cause? The other thing I would want to know is, if they're an OA, right? What is their history with food? What is their history with dieting? And what diets have they tried? What did they feel like, quote unquote, worked versus not worked? Where are they on a really, like, on an emotional level? Like, do they have connections, or are they isolated? Do they have support, right? Do they have partners who support them? Do they have friends who support them? Or are they just living alone because they've been isolated for so long? So those are just a few things I would want to look at, but also to get to know all those behaviors first before I even say, okay, well, to get your mobility back, we need to get you to stop eating M&Ms, right? Or whatever it is. Mm-hmm. I think that is like that's the micro view, right? The small picture view. Mm-hmm. When, to me, Health at Every Size looks at a really big picture view, a really, like, encompasses all parts of this person's life to understand what health is for them.
Right. And, as a clinical dietitian, if somebody's falling down all the time, the first thing I'd say is, I hope you're going to your doctor to see why. Because actually, I've seen a lot of fat people as patients, and they don't usually fall down just because they're fat. There's usually something else going on, and hopefully that's getting a workup. So to take an issue like that, which is potentially, a health issue, and say, well, we're going to fix this by dieting. It's like, wait a minute. That's like putting a Band-Aid on a sucking chest wound. Like, yeah. There's something else going on here that might be needed. There might be a health issue.
And the last part of, like, this Health at Every Size thing that we haven't even talked about, and you touched on it right there, is that respectful healthcare.
Yeah, which is hard for larger people to get. Right.
So, I mean, you're right. Maybe this person hasn't even been to the doctor in 10 years because they've been stigmatized every time they go, right? And treated poorly. So we don't know what the cause of that falling down issue is. So the reason that Health at Every Size speaks to me so much is because it's learning to advocate for yourself in those positions, to sort of say, okay, I'm falling down, right, for X, Y, and Z. The language that I always sort of use in this office is, okay, I understand that you just told me to lose weight because of for that issue, what advice do you give to the person who's in a smaller body?
Yeah, and
who's
that
falling?
does happen.
Yeah.
I've had many patients who have mobility issues that are thin. Unfortunately, only the larger ones feel that their mobility issues are going to be fixed by losing weight.
Right.
When in reality, large people exist without mobility issues. Thin people exist with mobility issues. We have to start thinking about, is it more than just weight?
Right. Before we started, right, my analogy is we're not weeble wobbles, right? It's not like, oh my God, all of a sudden, like my center of gravity is off and all of a sudden I'm falling every 2 minutes.
Yeah. Although weebles wobble and they don't fall down.
That's true. Well, I just like to say weeble wobble.
I know. I love my weeble wobbles. Yeah. So in terms of like how I would help that person, first, hopefully if I'm in a clinical setting, we've got a doctor kind of looking at why this person's falling down. I'm convinced it's probably more than just the person's weight. Now, it might not be, although, again, I know very large people who don't fall down. So I'm going to say something else is going on and hope that and I'm going to advocate for that person to get the treatment that they need, that they would also give to a thin person or normal weight person with the same issue. And then if it came down to, okay, you do need help with your eating because maybe you're binge eating. And I do think that a lot of binge eaters show up in OA. And unfortunately, I personally don't think that they're helped by that. Well, I shouldn't make such a blanket statement, but I've heard from a lot of people that are former OA members that, it was just more restriction, which we know doesn't really help binge eating. So, if binge eating was still their issue, then we'd work on those issues. If they needed to improve their diet, we'd work on those issues. Like, you can still work on health with Health at Every Size. We're just not going to be restrictive. We're just not going to talk about your weight. We're going to talk about the food issues.
Yeah. And I think the person who submitted this question, if I'm that person, I think I would also advocate for her, and I'm assuming it's a her, for the client that I think she said it to her, is that get plugged in with a professional, right? I'm offering you this emotional, spiritual support, right? That's great. I'm working on some of these also. You need to get the support of finding a good Health at Every Size dietitian or therapist to help you integrate some of these things that can also work with OA, right? I mean, like it really depends. I know people that have been in OA for umpteen years. Doesn't sound great to me, but they're getting some benefit from it. That's fantastic. And it's helping them. So I think it's finding like building that support team, right? That can help answer these questions. And I think what I would love from every OA sponsor is to say, this is my boundary, right? This is where I don't know how to help you. Let's get you plugged in with this person who's a professional who can help you there. Right. The other thing is the important thing that the last thing I would work on with this person is, even though some things are not working in their body the way they might want them to, right? I don't think anyone wants to be falling down all the time. Is to work on doing some self-care for our body, right? Some things that are good for our body to take care of ourselves on. And again, that could be going to the doctor, right? It could be sleep. It could be, managing our stress, all these other things, because I've worked with some clients who are in larger bodies, but also have like these autoimmune disorders and who are like, my body's failing. Like, why should I take care of it? It's totally failing me. And to me, those statements really are quite powerful because it highlights how self-care can be so difficult when we feel like we're fighting our body or our body's fighting us, more importantly.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've seen those patients too in my clinical practice. So it is hard to sort of motivate somebody when they're already not feeling well to take care of themselves. So if that's already difficult, then putting something really restrictive like a diet on top of it is actually not going to be helpful at all.
Exactly.
Because as we all know, to lose weight, you really do have to be hungry and to deny yourself. That's the reality, and it's still temporary. So to me, Health at Every Size helps somebody include healthy behaviors or move towards those behaviors in a gentle way and in a compassionate, self-compassionate way, instead of being like, you can't eat this because. And so if you're already struggling with self-care because you don't feel good, because you're sick, then, we start in like, what can you do?
Yeah.
Yeah. Baby steps.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, well, I think we sort of addressed a lot of stuff there.
Yeah.
Right. Hopefully that's helpful to our reader. I love that we got this question.
Yeah. And I love that we could work it into the whole wellness thing.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Because this is our real answer.
This is our non-soundbite answer.
Right.
Right.
It's messy.
It is. And I think that's a great word for it. It is messy.
Yeah.
It is messy. I mean, and I think that is part of where some people struggle with health at every size. They don't want it to be messy. They want it to be clean and orderly and in line. And the reality is it's not. It's messy. It's not linear. It's fraught with ups and downs and struggles. And I think finding the right clinician to help you is really important for a lot of people, because it is so messy.
Right. Exactly. So hopefully that helps clear that up.
Yeah. And if it doesn't help, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
That's the best we got.
Bottom line, I'm still not going to recommend weight loss just because of the temporary nature of it. And we know this from all the science.
Yeah.
Which is why we can
Perfect.
say that. Yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Hey, it was great talking to you about this stuff.
Yeah. No, I love these conversations. This is why we do our podcast.
Yeah.
So, well, thanks everyone for listening.
Yeah. Thanks for joining us. And we will talk to you again soon.
Thanks for listening.